Welcome back to the Critic-Verse. Today we're going to be continuing with our recap and review of Warrior Season 3, with Season 3, Episode 7, titled, Gotta Be Crooked to Get Along in a Crooked World. Now, before we get to the review, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to keep updated on all things Critic-Verse, and to help me get to 500 subscribers. Now, on to the rest of the video. Once again, the episode is titled, Gotta Be Crooked to Get Along in a Crooked World. This line is spoken by Abigail after telling Lee the story of how her husband and Happy Jack's brother Wesley died, and how Wesley was a good and honest man, did honest work, but was attacked by a couple of white boys, but he was arrested and resisted and killed, which is what made Abigail lose faith in honesty. This line actually applies to every single character in the show, but a few in particular in this episode. Yan Mi skimming off the top with some of the counterfeits she's been printing. Lee struggles with his own morality after the previous episode, and his work may not be done. And Sahm struggles with his own inner conflict and where his place truly lies in Chinatown. Now, the episode starts after the events of the previous episode. Father June is being rushed inside Hop Wei HQ, and his wound starts to get treated, but it doesn't look good. Young June is visibly upset with Sahm. The two brothers that Leary beat up break into a Chinese grocer, attack the owner, and make a run for it. They run into Yan Mi's brother, who tries to interfere but just gets mowed down before the Chinatown squad shows up and makes an arrest. Bill gets a rude awakening when he starts work for his brother-in-law, only to find out that he's going to be starting from the bottom and not immediately working on the books. Turns out, Bill is sort of in favor of nepotism. Who would have thought? At a toys place, the previous owner that Nellie liberated some of the girls from comes to reclaim them. Then a toy stands firm, but Ming Yu tries and he doesn't know who he's messing with. Even when he thinks he's got her pinned, Big Dude comes to the rescue and Lai kicks him over the balcony. Leary and Douglas make it known to Buckley that Thayer is backing out of the race because of their conversation in the previous episode, and to make sure he knows who to thank in the future. Happy Jack comes to Abigail's place and he's giddy until Lee and Chow make their presence known. Then Abigail shoots Jack in the chest, but it's Chow that delivers the kill shot. And I gotta be honest, I didn't see that coming. I didn't think that was how Happy Jack was gonna go out. Sahm is lamenting over the consequences of his actions in the previous episode and the state of Father June, while Yang Mi tries to ease his conscience. Yan Mi decides to place her trust in Sahm and show him the stash of bills she's been skimming off the top from what she prints. And she tells him so she can afford an exit strategy out of Chinatown. And he has her promise not to do it anymore because of what consequences might come her way. Father June begins to have episodes where his previous memories bleed into the present. And it's all because of the effects of, I wouldn't say surviving, but trying to outlive that bullet wound. Leary bursts into the police station looking for Bill, only to find out he's no longer a cop. Then he barges into Atwood's office, but turns out Atwood is a stickler and does not like Leary. And I hate how this show puts me on Atwood's side. Next, Assam and Yanmi are enjoying each other when no one else is around, but are interrupted by Ling, typical sister cockblock. She wants to invite Assam to her and Lee Young's wedding, and even tells him to invite Yanmi. Yanmi's brother and his friends are starting to become itchy. They find a lone duck and start beating on him, like just wailing. Next, Lee is feeling lost but sort of hopeful for the future. Then Abigail begins to tell him about her husband. An honest and good man won't survive in a crooked world. And then Abigail then says the title of the episode. Young Jun brings some of his men to learn from Yanmi under the guise of wanting to ramp up production, but really he wants to remove the only thing that's keeping Yanmi indispensable to them. Mosley pops up in Abigail's bar, surprised to find Lee there. And it turns out, after his encounter with one of Happy Jack's men, he now has a scar running up the side of his face. And says it's only a flesh wound. Lee tries handing in his badge, but Mosley asserts how this situation is still gonna go, because Lee still has a murder charge with Mosley, where Mosley won't make that go away unless he gets what he wants, which is the plates. Ling arranges a parlay between Atoy and Mingyu, where Atoy offers compensation for the girls that are now with her. Mingyu is insulted, but Ling puts him in his place, and Lee Young walks him out. Ling and Atoy then begin to make small talk after they sort of bonded in their particular stuck moment during the Chinatown riots. And Atoy gives Ling some constructive criticism on how making her place reflect what the Ducks wanted to won't help Ling adapt to where she is now. And that she's making her place look Chinese because she thinks that will make her accepted. At the Banshee, the men are upset that the Chinese jumped one of their own, and they're ready to head back to Chinatown to start another riot. But Leary isn't having it. He explains in the simplest of terms why this is a bad idea and that he'll handle the Chinese. Then we get a shot of Leary in a sea of Chinese people. He heads into Chinatown and spots the 10-foot-tall mural of Assam and is not too pleased by it. Assam and Hong exit Hop Wei HQ to confront Leary, who says he just wants to talk. He brings up the attack on one of his guys and that he wants those responsible handed over. Assam offers the same deal for the Donahue boys, and it seems that they are both at an impasse. And then they seem to establish a bit of quid pro quo, that the Chinese will stay in Chinatown and the Ducks stay out of it as well. And the Ducks stay out of Chinatown. And they sort of have an understanding and, dare I say, a mutual respect for one another. And Assam tells Hong to put out the word that they're supposed to stay in Chinatown. And if anyone leaves, he'll hear about it. After Father Jun went missing, he is shown having an episode in Longzi territory. And a couple of Longzi hatchet men have gathered around him and are making fun of the senile old man and just toying with him, until Lee Young comes outside and tells them all to head in. Cut to Young Jun worried about where his father could be, until he sees Li Young bringing him back unharmed. But Father June is still hesitant because of his confusion and doesn't even recognize young June. But Li Young assures him he's home. But young June doesn't even thank him, and that seems like a missed opportunity. At a Toys, Yanmi's brother and friends are there, bragging all about their victory until a Sahm arrives and puts them back in their place. A Sahm makes a decree that if anyone gets itchy, he'll hear about it. Tells Yanmi and his friends to leave, and claps and tells everyone get back to partying. You know, some real boss shit. A Toy sees this and is sort of proud of a Sahm because she's always been saying, especially at the start of this season, that he's a leader to the people of Chinatown, and this just proves it even more. He then comes upstairs and they have a private chat about what the kid did and then the recent problems they both have been having. And then they switch to the topic of My Ling's wedding, and apparently they're both invited and they're both going. Thayer then comes to Buckley upset about how he's dropping out of the race, and then begins to berate Buckley about how even though he has this race, he doesn't have anything else. He has no one, not even someone to celebrate with. Buckley throws it back at him, being a silver spoon brat, and after he leaves, Buckley goes to meet with Catherine and gets some more sticky. The episode ends on young June drowning his sorrows, drunkenly ranting about everything, what Assam has been doing, and how it's been negatively affecting them, while Hong tries to smooth things over really between them, but young June is unsure of Assam's loyalties, and that just kills me. Holy hell. This might have just been my favorite episode of Season 3. And I know this episode felt like a lot happened and then nothing happened at all, but this episode was the calm before the storm of these final 3 episodes. And a couple things I want to talk about. I really liked the shot when Ming Yu was threatening a toy, and then in the background you can see Lai show up, but then she's out of focus. But then you know that it's her. And one thing I hate about this episode, I hate that Leary made me like Atwood and take his side, because I hate the guy, but I thought he was totally in the right keeping the Donahue boys locked up. And it's funny because Leary had to put his hat in his hand just to ask this, because Atwood wasn't even listening to him, wasn't even paying attention to the guy. The guy that Yang Mi's brother and his friends beat up, for some reason decided to lie about the number of guys that were beating him up. Like, did he think it was a shame that he got beat up by 3 guys, even though it was just one of him? So he had to make up this lie about like a dozen chinks beating him up? Like really? We also get a reverse scene of what happened in episode 10 of last season, where Assam went into the pond to tell the ducks to stay out of Chinatown. Leary comes to Chinatown to tell them to stay out of the pond, but in different words. And his reaction to Assam's mural was priceless. But also, one thing I hated, well, not hated, one thing I was upset about was Happy Jack's death. It came out of nowhere, and I know he had it coming. But I will say the character felt underutilized, and I wish we could have seen more with him. It was kind of nice seeing Mai Ling and Assam get along in this episode. Like, they felt like there could be a road to reconciliation between between his two siblings. And it was funny because earlier we got to see how two siblings would argue with one another, and now we get to see what it's like when they're close. MVP moment has to go to Lee Young, with his moment of true compassion and how he made sure Father June returned home safely. I really wish young June would have thanked him for that. Next, Assam slapping Yanmi's brother. I wonder how she'll react to that, knowing what her brother did, but that it was the guy she's sleeping with that hit him. And how are we feeling about Atoy and Assam being just friends? Because I know in season 1, they were the couple. They were Assam's romantic pairing. Well, otherwise, him with Penny. But I was really not too cared for about that. And I mean, Nelly is practically out of the way. And they keep waving the death flag for Yan Mi. I mean, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. And thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time in the Critic-Verse.